These are my top 10 NBA duos. Now, this is ranked specifically in order from 10 to 1. Again, after the draft, after free agency, majority of NBA moves are more than likely over. These are my top 10 NBA duos in the sport. Number 10 is a new duo, folks. Joel Embiid and Paul George. I know what you're thinking. Brandon, they're too low on the list. They should be, 5 or 4 or somewhere around there because it's Embiid and Paul George. And I understand it. But I am going based off what I believe will be a successful season for Embiid, Paul George, and you can throw in Tyrese Maxey there and the Philadelphia 76ers. For the Sixers, I think a successful season has to be the Eastern Conference Finals. They have made the second round of the postseason before. They have obviously been in the playoffs, whether it's a 3 seed, a 2 seed, a 1 seed, a 7 seed, like they were a year ago. In the Joel Embiid era, they have not made an Eastern Conference Finals. They must do so, I believe, in the length of this Paul George contract. I'm not saying make the finals. I think the East is getting a little bit better, but I think they have to at least make a conference finals here in the first few years of this Embiid Paul George run. And when they're both out, alongside Tyrese Maxey is a perfect fit. But as I've talked about multiple times when it comes to this Paul George signing, I think Paul George is signed up to something in Philadelphia that's very similar to what he signed up with when it comes to the Los Angeles Clippers when he joined there in 2019. That's a very talented star, could be a top 5 player in the sport, but he is never healthy. And that's why I have them at number 10. Now, number 9 is Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And this is just mostly because I don't feel like these guys are the perfect match. I don't feel that they're the perfect fit. Now, maybe they would be if they had a traditional point guard. If you sub out Bradley Beal and you put in Chris Paul, which again, I didn't understand that move that Phoenix made a year ago, moving on from Chris Paul and replacing Bradley Beal, because I really felt like Bradley Beal and Devin Booker were essentially the same player, and they tried to make Devin Booker a little more of a point guard. It wasn't working. Devin Booker to me is a very good player. At times, he could be a top 10-ish player, though I put him more to 15 and 20 because I don't think Devin Booker has that clutch gene in him. I think he can just be a streaky scorer at times. He's a lot like Donovan Mitchell, but I think Donovan Mitchell has more dog in him. Kevin Durant does have dog in him, but Kevin Durant has not made it out of the second round of the playoffs, folks, since leaving the Golden State Warriors after the 2019 NBA Finals. If Durant were to make the conference finals this year, that would be a 6-year difference between when Durant was in the conference finals versus when he was not. That's a big issue for me. They don't win enough. Again, talented, but not enough wins for me to put them lower on the list. I have KD and Booker at 9. Now, number 8 was the tough call because I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. Again, I don't know if Donovan Mitchell necessarily is a top 10 player anymore in the NBA. I think guys like Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander have sort of leapfrogged him. And again, it's pick your duo here. I went with Darius Garland, but they're really all on the same level. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. It's basically Donovan Mitchell and a combo of one of those 3 other players in Cleveland. And the same story here when it comes to KD and Booker. Again, they don't win enough. And I don't think that the Cavs roster, as currently constructed, is an Eastern Conference Finals team. I actually think if there's one team out there before the season that could make a major deal, like Milwaukee did last year for Damian Lillard, it's probably this team right here in the Cleveland Cavaliers. But when it comes to Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, because I think most people consider Garland probably the second best player on the Cavs, though I think currently it's Jared Allen and then Evan Mobley, then Darius Garland. I think Darius Garland's great, but I don't think him and Mitchell are the perfect fit because they're similar size players, 6'1" guards. They have similar games. And when your backcourt is basically a duplicate of the same player, I don't think it's a recipe for success to win in the postseason. So again, talented, win a lot of games, just not there yet. Now, number 7 is Giannis and Damian Lillard. I know what you're going to say. How are these guys not in the top 5? It's because Damian Lillard has made one Western Conference Finals in his career, and Giannis has not been healthy really ever since winning the championship in 2021. And they've had a mess in Milwaukee, and that just can't be all on coaching. They went from Adrian Griffin to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers seems to be in trouble at the start of this season. They fired Coach Bud seemingly for no reason in Milwaukee. So there's been a lot of changes, and I think Giannis and Dame have been the people relative to change. And I thought they struggled, a little bit on the court together last year. And I also said this a year ago: the Milwaukee Bucks won their only playoff game in that series against Miami without Giannis Antetokounmpo on the court. They beat Indiana twice this postseason without Giannis Antetokounmpo on the court, and one of those games was without Damian Lillard on the court. So how much value do these guys add? Once again, talented. I think if they're healthy, they could make a run. I think they're very good. I don't think they're as good right now as Boston. I don't think they're as good right now as the Knicks. I think they're sort of in that Philly, Cleveland, Orlando, Indiana sort of tier of teams in the East. But if Giannis and Dame stay healthy, they can be as lethal as a top 3 duo in the league. It just depends on health. I haven't seen it over the past few years. Number 6, a brandly new form duo, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges in New York. I talked about this when it comes to Jalen Brunson on Tuesday. Jalen Brunson is the New York Knicks' best player since Patrick Ewing. He is better than Karl-Anthony by far. He's already done more for Madison Square Garden, for the Mecca, for the city of New York than Karl-Anthony ever did. The Knicks were a disaster for most of my life until Jalen Brunson came along. Knicks went from a disaster 2 years ago to signing Jalen Brunson to, if he did not get hurt, you could make an argument they're in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And what they needed that they did not have last year was more shooting on the outside, a legitimate wing where Josh Hart could now come off the bench. Mikal Bridges fits that bill to a T. He's also a Villanova guy. He's going to be great in Tom Thibodeau's system. I think it is a perfect fit. And I think Jalen Brunson is now a superstar. I think Mikal Bridges is now a star. And I think the Knicks could go places. I actually think they are, next to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the best duo in the Eastern Conference. Number 5, Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, when we got to 5 through 1, a lot of my decision making had to do with, well, this duo beat this duo because, 4 out of the 5 duos are in the Western Conference. And I like Anthony Edwards. And I love what he did in the first couple rounds of the playoffs this year. And I thought Karl-Anthony Towns really stepped up in Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets when it mattered. And Cat can have his night. I think Anthony Edwards is great. My worry is I think Anthony Edwards is just a little bit too young. I think in the next few years, if they keep Cat around, if they change a little bit of this roster so that these guys can be more explosive, so they're not relying as much, on Rudy Gobert in the paint, so they have more shooting on the outside than just Ant and Cat. Anthony Edwards is only going to grow. He's only going to become, the top 2-3 player, potentially the best player in the sport over the next few years. And this has been Karl-Anthony Towns' first deep playoff run, which is why I have them at 5, but they can definitely grow as the years commence. Now, one of the reasons why I have those guys at 5 is because number 4 right ahead of them is Luka and Kyrie. And I am shocked I have them this high because I'm shocked that Luka and Kyrie Irving worked. It took a year, but clearly when Dallas redid their team at the trade deadline, a lot like I just said, I think Minnesota should do, maybe at next year's trade deadline, add more shooting, add more, depth behind Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. Dallas did that, and their postseason run, remember, they were a 5 seed. And I said, I think the one break they got in this NBA playoff was not having to face a healthy Paul George and Kawhi Leonard when it came to the Clippers, because I still thought that duo, if they were together and healthy, were a top five duo in the NBA. You know, they were a lot more mature and a little bit wiser than that Oklahoma City team and the Minnesota team, and then they did get exposed by Boston's duo in the NBA Finals. But Luka and Kyrie clearly showed they have potential to, on some nights, as Stan Van Gundy said this postseason, be the best backcourt in NBA history. I don't think that's the case. I think Steph and Clay still top that. Obviously, Clay is in Dallas now. We'll see how much Clay can help. But that's part of the change on why Luka and Kyrie are so high on this list, is because Kawhi and Paul George are no longer a duo, as well as Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are no longer a duo. Number three best duo in the NBA, the NBA champions, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, who I think we can now acknowledge, now that they've won the NBA championship, they've been together for multiple years, this duo needed each other. There are some nights where they're both great. There are some nights where Jaylen Brown, and probably more often, is better than Tatum, but there are nights, especially in the regular season, when Tatum is better than Jaylen Brown. They are two legit wings who should both be on Team USA, by the way. Obviously, we know there's some politics going on there with Jaylen Brown, but these guys need each other. I think their friendship is very good. I think they play off each other very well. I just don't know if without those special role players, they make an impact on the game and they scare you as much as number two and number one. But again, very good and definitely without a doubt the top duo in the Eastern Conference. Number two, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Again, these guys, and I say, I talk about production when it comes to Devin Booker and KD and, what will Spider and Donovan Mitchell do and Giannis and Dame. So I get it. Maybe I'm being a little bit hypocritical here when it comes to LeBron and AD. But what we saw last year, and who knows how the scheme is going to change now that new head coach JJ Redick is being implemented in LA. But a healthy LeBron and a healthy AD, who, Anthony Davis for the first time in a long time last year was healthy, played 76 games. And it's one of the things that we saw the Lakers wanted to do after they won the bubble championship 4 years ago, and they could not accomplish it. And that has passed the baton over from LeBron James to Anthony Davis. And you could have made a real argument last year that Anthony Davis could have been the defensive player of the year. He was putting up similar numbers to LeBron on both sides of the ball. And again, Denver to me was just deeper, and Jamal Murray was maybe more clutch, but we kept saying it. The Nuggets were a bad matchup for the Lakers. If the Lakers would have got Minnesota or Oklahoma City, who knows? Maybe they could have went on a deeper playoff run, and maybe Darvin Ham would still be the head coach. I think LeBron and AD again, when healthy, are so special. It's that, point forward and that power forward slash center that just has a unique size, speed, ability to shoot, ability to do everything. I think AD had been what LeBron had been searching for with Dwayne Wade and Bosh in Miami and Kevin Love and Kyrie in Cleveland. And while those teams won championships, so did LeBron and AD. Yes, they only have the one title and they probably should have another one, or maybe they shouldn't have any. But AD just feels like the perfect sidekick to LeBron, where he was the number one in New Orleans. He did not work out as the number two in LA. He's been really good when healthy. And that means, without a doubt, in my opinion, the best duo, the duo you should be most scared of in the NBA, comes in Denver, Colorado. Best player in the world, still, in my opinion, Nikola Jokic, and I still think a top 8, top 9 player in the world, Jamal Murray, who, yes, at some points this postseason, mysteriously and weirdly, Jokic and Jamal Murray both disappeared, including in the second half of Game 7 against Minnesota. But you saw the willpower that Jamal Murray gave you. 27 points in the first half from your number two option. We know what Jamal Murray turned into the postseason. We know the reason why pundits like myself thought Denver could be the next dynasty in the NBA. It was their bench depth, yes. It was their coaching and Mike Malone. But we saw when Denver took that next step a year ago and won the NBA championship, when Jamal Murray was healthy. And we kept watching Nikola Jokic and we kept saying, how do you beat Nikola Jokic? Do you let Jokic get 50 and let the other guys not get anything? Or do you let Jokic get 30, 10, and 10? And that was a real question and a real debate with the Denver Nuggets. And I think Jamal Murray is just such an underrated player. I said it before. He's the most underrated player in the NBA that has never made an all-star team. Jamal Murray can be nuclear on some nights, specifically when you need him most. And when you go into a game like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, you know you always have a chance to win. So to recap, from 10 to 1, these are my top 10 NBA duos as of today, July 25th, 2024. Number 10, brand new duo in Philly of Joel Embiid and Paul George. Number 9, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker in Phoenix. Number 8, the Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Number 7, Giannis and Dame in Milwaukee. Number 6, the newly formed duo of Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson with the New York Knicks. Number 5, Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns in Minnesota. Number 4, Luka and Kyrie in Dallas. Number 3, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the NBA champion Boston Celtics. Number 2, LeBron and AD in LA. And number 1, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray in Denver. Again, in a situation like AD, Booker, Beal, and B, George, Maxey, Cleveland's dynamic with Mitchell, and then either Garland, Mobley, or Allen. Pick whichever, trio or whatever you want. I just picked what, in my opinion, is perceived by the media as the second best player on those specific teams when the duo part of it, the second part of the duo, isn't necessarily clear. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.